Okay, so today we're in Warwickshire. We're going to a place called Stoneleigh Abbey, and the new part of that house was built between 1714 and 1726, and it's another one of those sort of hidden gem places that you don't see mentioned much, and it looks quite a nice place, so yeah, it should be interesting. Okay, so we should be coming up to it shortly. This is it. Couple of lodge buildings here. Nice drive here. Apparently this drive is lined with lime trees. This stone bridge here, I believe, was built in the early 1800s by someone called John Rennie. Built in sort of a classical style. Yeah, this is a nice approach. Looks like nice parkland surrounding it and stuff. So like I say, I believe these are lime trees lining this drive. A lot of sheep grazing off to my right. Let's see where we have to park. Park here. Now this building in front of us here is the one I've just come through to buy my tickets and stuff, and this is actually a 14th century gatehouse. Okay, so this is the new part of the house, which was built in the early part of the 1700s, actually between 1714 and 1726. And this is in a Baroque style, or Baroque, however you pronounce it wherever you are. Now I've got a house tour booked for 11 o'clock, and it's about 10:30 now, so it won't be long, and we'll be having a bit of a look inside to see what it's like. So as you'll be able to see, the new house, which was built in the early 1700s, consists of 4 stories and 15 bays, and this was actually designed by the architect Francis Smith of Warwick. Now Stoneleigh is actually a former seat of the Barons Leigh, which is spelled L-E-I-G-H, as in the end of Stoneleigh. And there was actually a fire here in 1960 which left parts of the house in a rundown state, and it could no longer be cared for by the Leigh family, and so at that point it was actually sold to a charitable trust, but that trust failed, but it was then saved by a new charitable trust, and that one was set up by a local businessman called Tony Bird, and then Stoneleigh was sort of brought back to life. See the ducks relaxing here, going through their morning routine. Nice setting for it. Another interesting thing to note is that Queen Victoria and Prince Albert visited here in 1858. There's a lovely stone balustrade just down from the house, and this actually looks onto the River Avon. In the early 1800s, this part of the River Avon just outside the house was actually widened to give it the appearance of a lake. We'll be having a bit more of an in-depth look at the gardens and grounds after we've had our house tour. Another interesting thing to note is that Queen Victoria and Prince Albert visited in 1858. There's also a Jane Austen connection to Stoneleigh, as she visited in 1806 and later used some of the places in the house and grounds as inspiration for settings in some of her novels. For example, the description of the chapel in her book Mansfield Park matches exactly with the chapel at Stoneleigh. There was actually an abbey here in the 12th century, but little remains of the original buildings now. Nice monkey puzzle tree there, one of the few trees I actually do now, that you can see when looking down towards the river from next to the house. It's a lovely looking place. Halfway along this stone balustrade outside the house and next to the river, you can see that the steps leading down to the river, or the lake as they may call it. And you can imagine people setting off in boats from here, just going for a bit of a paddle on the lake outside the house. So this is the orangery, which is not far off the side of the house, and I believe this was built in the early 1800s. This is now used as a cafe. Okay, just about to go into the house tour in a few minutes.
So welcome to the first room of the house, which is technically the last room finished in 1726. And in a way, you can see that it was. Because down here, there's not a lot going on, okay? Just not much. So it's almost as if Edward III was almost like running out of money by this point. The ceiling itself was finished after really Edward III, because this is 20 years later in the 1740s, but it is the original plasterwork to the house, finished by a man called John Wright. Servants only, men one side, ladies the other. The family themselves will have stood up, because information, as you'll find out, was lost. But if you look on that, where it's almost as if you're looking from the Gatehouse, you can see a 6-foot boundary wall. Now the other thing is when you turn that page, okay, I think we're all set in the family. Did you want to use this? Stairs for me, and I'll meet you at the top of the stairs by the just round the corner. That's 0. Okay, I'll just jack them through.
I think I've seen the ghost.
There's a red chair there if you want to take a seat there. Okay, okay. So this is the longest stories in this room. Okay, so settle in. Case, it's very good glue nevertheless. It was 1726. Bruce Forsyth. Of course it's not. This is Sir Thomas Lee, who built the house in 1561. He died in 1571. He's a very powerful man. Look at all this land he owns. All these people admire and respect him, as do we. He is a good man from a good family. He's just on the wrong side. And besides, if we execute him within the walls of our city, he has access to his wife Anne. They said, Anne, give us the money for your husband's release. She hands over £4,895. In 1643, that's 7 million in today's money. This sets Thomas free. He now needs to start selling some of his land to acquaint his money back. This is what he sells. I think some of you live there. Lutterworth, Hinckley, Dunchurch, Daventry, Rugby, Nuneaton, Bedworth, Southern, Bulkington, Kings Newnham, Gaydon, Stratpon-Avon, Hellinarden, Ulster, Selly, Shirley, Knoll, Hampstead, Ridware, Lapworth, Polesworth and parts of Gloucestershire. He acquaints the money, thank you. Okay, so welcome to the Saloon. From 1774, Edward V wanted to showcase anybody that walked through the door, A, if they were of a religion, this beautiful religious aspect of Oregon. As soon as you walk through the door, what's the first thing you see? This wonderful three-dimensional effect of Hercules going to the Mount Olympus and going to the heavens to meet the gods and then make them a demigod. That's what he wanted to showcase. Almost as if they could fall out of the ceiling onto our own plane with that wonderful three-dimensional effect. What we're looking at here is his biggest passion, and that was the story of Hercules. And he's handpicked his favourite parts of the story and added it into his main hall. Quite an astonishing piece, I think you'd agree. The 5 names attributed to this are a bit of guesswork, because they were in the area at the time. But if you remember, Mary destroyed everything. So you have to look at who was in the area doing something at the time, who would do this style of ceiling. So Francesco Vialli and Giuseppe are 2 people. Cipriani is another man. Timothy Leitola and the Bastard brothers from Leicestershire, all the harpsichord. Handel in the 1740s, Edward V, would have only been about 5, but he was brought up with his music to the point that Edward became a musician himself of a certain ilk, and they said, you sound very much like Handel. So yeah, you can see where he got his influences. Now breaking from the tour, I went to Chatsworth not long ago, and while I was in Chatsworth, they've got a room full of these busts, and there is exactly the same bust of Handel there. The only difference being is he went there two or 3 years before he came here, but the bust was done at the same time. But the bust in Chatsworth has his eyes, his pupils. This one doesn't. When Handel came here, he was battling cataracts that would lead him to his eventual blindness. So I'm just wondering if this is like an artistic license. Otherwise, can't really explain. It's the same person. 47 unicorns in this room. I can tell the ladies dreaming.
Too
No
up
idea where
there.
they are. If you look up before you get to the ceiling in the frieze. No. I'll tell you why we're here, because sometimes I do forget. But where those clouds are, there's 3 swirling clouds by the feet, they used to be cupids. And Harry came in here and destroyed the look of the building by putting a hole in the ceiling, just where those clouds are. And that allowed all the water and everything to take the pressure off the ceiling, so it wouldn't fall through. And by doing that, he technically saved the house. Just all got through the top. I'm not even kidding. That's okay. Something to remember. 1710 to 1730, you always have a room like this. Normally just one room in a house, but Edward III's ego, he wanted to put as many in as he possibly could that he could afford. It's oaks and mahogany. So you can go to Cork Abbey in Nottinghamshire to see exactly the same room as this. The furniture, well, a few of us would find it difficult because the furniture is Georgian, of course it is, but if you sat down, your white top, if I sat down in my white top, we're not going to get up in anything white, okay? We'll get up in a nice rouge colour. So welcome to the gentleman's room, and was always a gentleman's room as late as World War I. So ladies weren't allowed in here at all. Read bedtime stories. The emblem on the top, that's of Edward III and his wife Mary Holbeach. These are either their wedding gift or a congratulations for the build of a West Wing. They are of embroidery, Greek mythological stories, and of course they are of walnut. So, welcome to the library is something Jane Austen never said, because it wasn't a library in 1806. Yeah? Yeah. It's almost as if you water a plant too much, you can just kill it. So, yeah. Remember, wood continues doing its job until it rots. So, even some of your cupboards at home are probably still doing what they're supposed to be doing. Famous people who've been here. Lord Byron, and yeah, they're most of the people who've been in this room doing writings and some sorts. One person who didn't enter this room because the house didn't exist then, and that was William Shakespeare, who was found poaching in the woods. And you will see a slight change as we go through the side of the house. I'm going to go through to the saloon for me. That's very good. Yeah, and I'll be there in a moment. Yes, you spotted them. Okay. Queen Victoria came here for 3 days and 2 nights to open up Aston Hall in Birmingham to the public as a museum. She stayed here with her husband Albert, who was quite sickly at the time, so she wanted somewhere a bit more secluded. Otherwise, they would have stayed at Warwick Castle. Now, she only gave William Henry Lee, the owner of the house, 6 months' notice to get everything ready. Now, he expected 2 years with a room known as the Tangerine Room, and Albert jokingly went, "Doesn't smell of tangerines." And the reason for this is the Queen did not like the dark wood colours. Also, this is the old dining room, and William thought the Queen won't eat in here, it's too small. So that's why he knocks 4 pillars out of the centre of the saloon, so he could put a banqueting table down the centre, so the Queen and Albert could have their dinner underneath the best ceiling in the house, which she moaned about, saying should be gilded. £6,000, £3,000 each before the food even touches the plate. The food itself, the menu, was equates per day to £600. That's £3,600 per dinner. On China, that's only ever been used twice. How you doing, Wendy? obviously tulips during tulips fever, one tulip is the price of a house. So in the library you may have seen a lady with tulips, that means that she owned houses. You know, that one tulip is her way of saying that's, you know, one tulip is the price of a house. You know, she can just get tulips instead of buying a house. Just way blasé about being rather rich. The last room of the house, Queen Victoria's bedroom-ish. This is the bed that Queen Victoria slept in. These are the chairs Queen Victoria sat in. These are the mirrors Queen Victoria looked in. These are the curtains you saw open and closed morning and evening. Thankfully they put the oldest cricket ground in Warwickshire there instead now. But she never mentioned the River Avon. Never mentioned it. Why? Because in 1806 it wasn't there. In 1806 it was the other side of the field where you can just about see a line of dark green grass which they haven't cut. And they haven't cut it because they'd probably be quite wet underfoot. That's all straight through the middle of the river, pretty much. You know, all the sheep are all up there now. You can pretty much see there's a line that cuts through the field, and that then would lead on to where the river is to this day. So who moved it? Well, he bought his big red book here, didn't he? In Gates, so it's controlled more like a lake than a river. The undercurrent of that river, and it's a very strong undercurrent. If you jumped in, it will take you very quickly. The top half of that river, though, yesterday, for instance, ran that way. So it's all controlled by the wind. So when we look out there, we know which way the wind goes. Yeah. So it's a deceiving bit of water. It's also rather clever. I do a little bit. It's also known as, which I always forget the name, macket. So it's a star. But anyway, take an umbrella. Yeah.
Right, so I've just come out of the tour. I've got to say that tour is really good, and the tour guide is one of the best tour guides I've come across at any country house, to be honest. So yeah, I'd thoroughly recommend a tour of this place. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at the gardens and grounds, and firstly we're just going to pop over here, just opposite the house, and this is actually the cricket grounds, and these were apparently established in 1839. And these cricket grounds are home to Stoneleigh Cricket Club. Just off to the left down there, there's a little sort of clubhouse type thing just past the tree. Okay, so we're just going to go off this path, or down this path just past the cricket club, and see what's down here. So literally about 15 seconds down that path, and we've got what I think is known as the pump house. Apparently this pump house has been restored in recent times, including having the roof taken off and then replaced. Evidence of some old doorways on this side. Let's go around the other side and have a look. Can't actually see inside very well. See just about in there. Aha. So you can see there's a new doorway this side. Probably locked, I would expect. Yep. Never mind. That's a nice old feature. Incidentally, this pump house is Tudor Gothic in style and attributed to a C.S. Smith. Here's the good old English weather. A bit of rain. Not far from the pump house we come to a bridge called the Mill Bridge. And we're going to be heading over in this general direction. A bit further out there's this early 1800s iron bridge. We could take this bridge further out into sort of the parkland, but there's another route which crosses opposite the house across the field, so I think we'll take that. So we'll retrace our steps a little bit. So we'll take this more modern industrial looking bridge just to lead us towards the riverbank on the opposite side to the house. So here you should see the house coming into view from the opposite side of the lake or river. So the grounds at Stoneleigh were designed by Humphrey Repton, who was sort of the successor to Capability Brown. And what happened was he came here in around 1808 and sort of surveyed the land, and in 1809 he produced one of his famous red books with the designs for what he thought the place should look like, and he gave this to the owners, who carried out a lot of the designs, not all of them, but the general layout for the grounds here at Stoneleigh. And there's actually sort of an ongoing programme now to restore the grounds to how it originally would have been after Repton put forward his plans. So that should be interesting going forward. So we've mentioned the new part of the house, which is what we've looked at so far. But there's also an old part of the house which was built on the site of the old monastic buildings, and the Leigh family lived there from around 1560 to 1990. And the Leigh family continued to live there even after the ownership had passed to the charitable trust, but they now reside at Addlestrop Park in Gloucestershire. It's a shame about the rain today, but you can still see how beautiful the place is. Oh, look at this bridge over here that I assume we'll be going over that soon. Eventually we come to another modern looking bridge which should take us over to the same side as the house. And remember, there's an ongoing programme to restore the grounds to how they were in the 1800s, so chances are bridges like this might get replaced at some point. Pet cemetery. Monarch, favourite setter who was shot by accident. Apparently this setter was shot by accident during a hunt by Lord Leigh, so he erected this monument in his memory. And here we have some more graves of the Leighs' much loved pets. Now, just below the pet cemetery, there's a little area here called the Summer Grove, and apparently the rocks that are used here might have come from the demolished mill. So it's like a nice little summer shelter here. That would have been a table there. That's stone on a tree trunk. And this little thing here was apparently a fountain, and it's just the base that remains now that you can see. If we carry on a little further, we should come to this bridge, which is known as the Cordelia Bridge, which is named after Lord Leigh's daughter. And apparently Stoneleigh didn't even know that this bridge had existed at one point, but it was found on a photo from 1886. So luckily enough, due to this programme of restoration, they've been able to reinstate this bridge. Not far down that path we should come to that structure that we saw from the other side of the river earlier. And this is called the River Gazebo. Oh yes, you can relax here and look out onto the River Avon. There's even a nice bench here to sit on, so that's somewhere nice to relax. Now this is called the Thatched Summer House, and this dates to the early 1800s. Look at how the twigs are intricately latticed on the roof. It's quite a nice effect, that is. And again, this is somewhere where you can have a sit down and relax. Oh look, there's a door on the back. And there's the thatched roof. And then we come to the next feature, this fountain over here. So this area used to be a rose garden, and this fountain would have been the central feature of that rose garden. This again dates to the early 1800s, and this is made out of codestone. Now, codestone was quite popular in that period because it was easier to mould into complex shapes and such like. Oh look, there's a, looks like a dog or something there. So, if you actually look on the fountain itself, it looks to be sort of entwined twigs and things like that. And if we go back down, I think we've got a cat here on the side. And a horse maybe. Some kind of face looking at us. And as you can see here, there's a high wall, and obviously that looks like it would have been a walled garden or something there. Something interesting to note is if you see the top two floors of the new house, you can't actually go up there on the tours because they're actually leased out privately, and people live on those top two floors and also other parts of the house as well. So that's quite interesting. That must be nice to wake up and have a look at the view in the morning out of one of your top floor windows. So if you look from this side of the house, you can actually see the older parts of the house behind it, just there. And according to the tour guide, this area in the middle here, that would have been where the original abbey was in the 12th century. Just up the drive from the car park, there's this Tudor Gothic stables and riding school. And this is from the early 1800s, and again by the architect C.S. Smith. Have a little look in it. Apparently the old riding school part is now a banqueting hall used for functions and stuff like that. Now this tree here, not far away from the car park, is called Shakespeares Oak, and apparently it's over 1,000 years old. And if you look at how thick the trunk is, you can probably believe it. Wow. That's quite impressive. So that was Stoneleigh Abbey in Warwickshire. And I enjoyed that. There's a lot of features and stuff to see there, and the house tour was absolutely brilliant. So yeah, I just want to say thanks for watching again. I really appreciate it. And while I'm saying that, I also want to say thanks to everyone for watching and subscribing, because last week I hit over 1,000 subscribers, so I just want to say how grateful I am to everyone for sticking with me and watching my videos, because it really sort of makes me want to make more when I know people appreciate them and watch them, so thanks a lot.